Welcome to the About Sex podcast, where we discuss...
Apes.
No, you were supposed to say monkeys.
I got lost.
My name is Josh, and with me, as always, is my lovely wife, Angela Skirtu. Tell us who you are, Angela.
Well, I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist and an ASEX certified sex therapist. And today our guest is Meredith Dino. Hi, Meredith.
Hi.
She has a special story to share with us, actually. So, welcome to the show. Tell us about yourself.
Hi.
That was your line. It was right there.
You're throwing me off here, Angela. Okay.
I know, right?
So we actually met you the other day, and you shared your story with us. It starts at a daycare. So
yes.
Tell us a little bit about that. Like, how did that... If you want to read
she
it,
wants
go
to
for it.
read it. Like I said,
Yes.
Okay, we're going to read a story.
She's going to read us a
Okay.
story. That's fine.
So, first of all, it's your personal story, and it's kind of a tough story to tell. So we do want to let people know this isn't an easy story to hear.
Right.
So,
So maybe trigger warning. This
Trigger warning?
story
Yes,
involves
very
child
trigger.
abuse, and if you don't want to hear about that, you should probably tune out right now. So
yeah. That's
Yes,
true.
no triggers.
yeah.
Hi. Okay, we're just going to walk with you.
Okay. So I'm Meredith Miller. I've never done this kind of thing before, so please bear with me. I'm going to be talking about sexual abuse as well as post-traumatic stress, which is very misunderstood. Many people think molesters and rapists are strangers in dark alleys. The truth is that they can be regular people that you see every day. In my situation, it was other students in an after-school daycare program. I was 6 years old when I started being abused.
It's okay.
We were put in, the 6-year-olds were put into the same room as 15-year-olds in the daycare, which really didn't make any sense. What's worse is that we were left unsupervised in the room. And when they picked us up from school in the daycare van, we were also unsupervised. In the van, a small group of us, about 4 or 5 boys and 4 to 5 girls, would be left alone while the teacher went in to get the younger kindergarten kids. The abuse started gradually. At first, it was tugging on my ponytail or pinches, but it escalated to molestation and even rape. When this would take place, one of us girls, who were much younger than the boys, which were in middle school, would serve as a lookout and tell the boys or boy when the teacher was coming back. I know that sounds awful, but us girls quickly learned that it was better to be the lookout than to be the one being abused. The first time I was actually raped was in the classroom. My friend Jay and I had built a fort in the classroom. We were inside playing in it when one of my abusers came in too. At that time, I saw my dad appear in the doorway to pick me up. I went to leave, but the boy held me back. My friend Jay did leave. I watched her run up to my dad, tell him something, and then watched him turn and leave. When my mom finally came to pick me up, she apologized a lot and said, "I thought that you were with your dad, and he thought you were with me." Turned out that Jay had told my dad that my mom had already picked me up. That's when I realized what a lookout really was. This went on for the next 2 years. I never told my mom because although she always warned me about strangers, these weren't strangers. I just thought of them as other kids. And over time, it seemed to become normal. I recall one of the times I was a lookout telling my friend N, "It's okay, don't move," meaning if you don't move next time, it won't hurt so bad. It finally stopped when I was 8 years old. We had moved away. About a year later, my mom asked me if anyone has ever touched me. That's when everything came out. My stepdad immediately got me into therapy. Even though the abuse was over, I didn't realize that the recovery would be the hardest part. In therapy, I often talked about time travel, but only going backwards, never forwards. That's when they realized I had PTSD. People associate PTSD with war and veterans, but you can actually get it from minor things, even a car accident. I grew to understand my time travel were actually flashbacks. When you have a flashback, you go back to the trauma. Everything is very detailed. You even know where the lights were on during the trauma, tastes and smells, pain, everything. comes back to you, and I'm that little girl again being abused. It looks and feels so real. When you have post-traumatic stress, you have triggers that can cause a flashback. My triggers are colors. For example, one day I saw one of the boys braiding a certain shade of yellow yarn. He came up behind and strangled me with it. The next thing I remember is waking up on a table and being in a lot of pain. I would have flashbacks several times a day, and they were always worse at night. To fall asleep, I would put a pillow over my face, basically suffocating myself till I passed out. I lived in fear for years. I hated people touching me. I couldn't even hug my mom. My mom would beg me to smile and how she missed it so much. As a preteen and teenager, I was very suicidal. I was in and out of psych wards on numerous different kinds of meds. I always thought I would be dead by 20. I never realized how strong I was till this point, and I am 32 now. I am married to a wonderful husband, have a great career. Through the years of therapy, I'm now in a place where I can stand in front of people and tell my story without fear, judgment, or shame. I realize that I am strong and in control. If anybody out there has been sexually abused, please do not be afraid to seek help, because we might not have been in control then, but we are now.
Thank you for sharing.
Thank you for sharing your story.
It's a very intense story.
Yes.
That's tough. So how are you now? That's been a few years back.
Yeah. I'm still in therapy.
Still in therapy.
I probably will be for a very long time.
Think you'll ever be done with therapy, or is you a lifer?
I mean, it really depends. As long as I take my medication and go to therapy, I learn how to deal with the flashbacks better. Mm-hmm. And you just learn how to live with them and not let triggers affect you as much.
Yeah.
Because
so you still get triggered. You have identified them.
Yes.
And so you can see when they're coming. What do you do when they come?
I just like breathe and say it's going to be okay, but sometimes I don't have control over it. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So I just kind of...
Does it make you react in any way?
Yeah, like I start hyperventilating. I get like, no one touch me. Mm-hmm. I try to isolate myself. Mm-hmm. But like during when I met you guys, I actually witnessed, this is how much it happens. In 2 hours, I saw 3 of my triggers.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And I just learned, just keep going, keep walking. You're going to be fine. Mm-hmm. This isn't happening. And usually I can stay out of a flashback. Mm-hmm. But now my flashbacks are very fast. They're not up to like hours or something or having multiple ones. I can actually like kind of get myself out of them if they're not as bad.
And you can pull yourself out.
Well, and I want to throw it out there that, like, you know, in therapy, so one of the things that we do when people are seeking therapy is that we're trying to help people identify what those triggers are. And they can be big or little things. Like they can be light if things happen in a certain lighting or a smell, or it could be a color. It could be a certain taste. It could be a bunch of different topic matter can do it. And so one thing that you're pointing out that I think is important for our audience members to know is that, like, usually if this hasn't been treated, these triggers can last for a really long time, and they can feel very uncontrollable. And the same is true even when it happens in a shorter term, but like it sounds like you've developed a little more control over them.
Yeah, my triggers are colors and like seafoam green.
Seafoam green
is a
that triggers me though. So, you know.
There you go.
Seafoam green.
It's not the best color.
No, it's not. Yeah.
But whenever I see it's a certain shade of seafoam green, I smell a weird smell.
You smell. Oh.
And I have no idea why. That's one of my triggers. I haven't figured that out.
I think that's called synesthesia. Like, I think that's the term where people can smell colors. Like
it's only with that one. The yellow, it has to be like a certain shade of yellow. Mm-hmm. It's not just any color of yellow.
Yeah, that's interesting.
But I don't know why it's seafoam green and also red.
Yeah, well, a lot of people see red. So.
Yeah,
well,
it's a common one.
Well, and that's the thing. So it's not always easy to figure out which ones are the actual triggers or why they're there, but usually they're related to things that happen during that time. Right. So like if
like
you
she
just
mentioned the yarn.
yeah,
in her
like
story.
you mentioned yarn in your story before, but like if you were looking at a certain thing, a certain color when things would happen, that's kind of a way you dissociate is
like
by
the
going
colors in
into
the
another
bus or in
color or a
school.
place.
Yeah.
Yeah, like if it was like a blanket that was that color, you know, you mentioned kind of being pulled into a blanket, then that could be what triggers
Yeah.
that. But it's hard to identify because also history, it's so long ago that sometimes we can't quite pinpoint exactly what it is. You just know, okay, this is a trigger. How do I start working through this?
And the unfortunate thing is triggers are a safety mechanism. Your body, your brain has decided when that bad thing happened, this was also happening. So if it's happening again, you want to try to avoid it. But unfortunately, now you're in a safe place. Your brain still sees that little trigger, and it's like, oh no.
Yeah,
It's tough.
like another trigger is the van that
The van.
yeah, that looks if I see the van that it looks like it, it still is a little trigger,
Yeah.
but I've been able since I understand that trigger, I've been able to deal with that better.
Yeah.
Like I have a memory, but it's not a full-blown flashback.
Because you were like 6 to 8 years old.
Yes, and
Yeah, I don't remember anything from that age.
I blocked a lot of stuff out.
Yeah.
So, it's like it was really it's the only things I remember are certain moments of the abuse. I don't really remember all the abuse because it went on for so long.
Right.
But
Probably best.
yes, I am okay with that.
Yeah, it's a body's way of coping with it, really.
Yep.
Oh yeah. But as I've gotten older, like I remember other things that have happened or put things together that make more sense because I was just a child. So
Is this difficult to talk about still?
yeah, sometimes. Like right now I'm nervous because I've never like done this before,
Sure.
but it's a lot easier.
It's okay. I make everybody
Yeah.
nervous.
yeah. No, and by the way, you're doing a great job.
Well,
this
thank
is
you.
Really difficult. I was like, oh my god, this is probably really hard for you.
No,
Is
it
there
has to
anything
be.
we can do to make this a little better?
Yeah. Have some warm tea.
Yeah. Well, I've been in therapy for 22 years.
Wow.
So luckily for my stepdad, he like really saved me.
Yeah. You
He
stepped in.
always he would put me like if I had to go to a psych ward or anything, he was very understanding. So that was really nice. Like he saved me.
That's awesome. It's good to have somebody like that. You can step
Yes, and since he's in the medical profession, it makes it even easier.
in. Yeah. So he knew what to do. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's hard when somebody doesn't work in that field and then they have this happen. They don't always know what to do.
Well, yeah, like he didn't really know what to do, like with me, but and neither did my father. My dad and my stepdad didn't know how to deal with this situation. It was
Sure.
more my mom because, well, being a woman and everything was one thing, but she would listen to me and be much more understanding. Where
Sure.
my dads would get like nervous and uncomfortable and start moving around and
Well,
like
it's hard to hear.
Yeah.
About
Yeah.
your
Well,
little
I can
girl.
imagine men getting angry too, like
Yeah,
wanting to hurt somebody.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah,
I'm
that
sure it's
was-
triggering for them. Like I cannot imagine if my daughter told me that story. Like I would murder people.
Well, I saw
Yeah.
really would.
I saw one of the I don't know if you guys know about like the gymnastics. There's a doctor that kind of was taking advantage of women in
Yes.
the gymnastics, right?
Right.
And they showed one of the guys in the court. So one of the guys, he was talking to the judge and he said, "Can I just have 1 minute with this guy?" Like he's literally asking the judge
Yeah.
to beat the shit out of the man. And the judge is like, "Well, we really don't do it like that.
We don't really do it like that.
We really can't like," and he's like, just 1
1
second,
minute.
just
1
just
minute
give me,
in a
and then
room.
he just charged, like he just
Oh, I
charged.
didn't know that.
Oh my gosh, I was like,
Good.
I saw it and I was like, and I saw his daughters behind him, you know, the ones that he's like defending, and it like made me cry a little because I was like, yeah, that's how you feel.
Oh,
You just
yeah.
want to kick somebody's ass.
Oh, my mom was very upset.
Yeah.
My mom actually contacted his family
Oh, really?
because she was
The
I was
abuser?
my main abuser.
Yeah.
Yeah, because one of them was my main one. But she actually contacted him, and it turns out that his wife divorced him, moved across the country, and changed their names. And the way that I was abused was more like if I was a boy. So what they think is that he was being also abused by his father
Yeah.
or by another male.
Yeah.
And when my mom confronted his father about that, he said, actually, I'm going to break into your house and rape you at night.
What?
The father said that?
The father threatened to rape them?
Threatened to rape my mother.
What the hell?
What? What
Yeah.
a horrible...
Did they call the police?
I don't know if my mom called the police. He tried to trick her and say, oh, this is my wife on the phone. And when my mom said his little sister's name, she didn't know who that was. So that was, okay, this is a fake person. I'm not talking to the actual mother. And that's when everything came out that they moved across the country. Because I was worried about his little sister.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah, I see. Wow, that sounds horrible. So, like, obviously some kind of abuse was happening in the family. And that, I mean, this is something important for people to kind of understand, too, is that, like, abuse doesn't come from nowhere, you know? Like, a lot of times there is something going on in people's families that, you know, kids are acting out. There's different ways that people... You want to hold it for me?
You're blocking it.
I'm blocking. I'm bad because I don't see what I look like that way. But, like, this is why it's so important for people to learn good parenting skills, that, like, abuse and physical abuse can lead to abuse of other people. And that's why, you know, like, one of the things we need to be teaching our kids is empathy, like empathy training, to understand when you're hurting somebody else. If we're not teaching that from a very young age, then people can sometimes do things that they don't even realize how much harm they're causing. Yeah. And some of the things that I just want to put out there for, like, parents who may be worried about, you know, like, are my kids being abused? The first thing to look for is, I know I get a little tripped up because it's still painful. It's hard stuff to talk about, right?
It is. You're a little verklempt.
I am. Sorry, guys.
It's okay, Angela.
I don't want it to happen. I just wish we could prevent it all. But the big thing to look for is erratic changes in your kid's behaviors. Like, if your kid was a happy-go-lucky, talk to everybody kind of kid, and then suddenly they go really quiet and they shut down, and that's not like them. Or if they were shut down and they switch, it's any random switches in their behavior is what you're supposed to be looking for.
Yeah.
I didn't start acting that way until after the abuse.
Yeah.
I acted apparently totally fine. It was after the abuse because my mom worked and my stepdad worked, so they put me in a daycare again, and they didn't know about anything. So I would cry so much and hold on to the teacher in the daycare, and they didn't understand why. And that's when my sleeping habits were weird. Like, I would stay up for like a couple days.
Yeah.
I was always crying. My mom would try to hug me and I would cry. And that's when she asked me, did anything ever happen to you?
Yeah, because it was the erratic behavior change, but it didn't happen while things were going on.
Yeah, it happened when I started having my quote-unquote time travel.
Right. So it was after the abuse had ended, but you had fear that it might happen again. You were having your PTSD coming in.
Yeah.
And that's when they noticed it.
Yeah, because, like, I wanted my mom to sleep in my room, but I didn't want her to touch me. Mm-hmm. And they, at the beginning, thought it was because I was jealous of my stepdad.
Oh, I see.
And I was like, no, I'm not jealous at all.
No, I don't care about that.
Yeah.
Kids can be territorial sometimes.
Well, that can happen. Yeah, sure.
So that's what they thought it was. But once I became very always sad, and I would space out, which was during flashbacks and everything, because I would say I lose track of time. Mm-hmm. I don't know where I am. So I went through a lot of diagnoses before they figured it out.
Oh, okay.
Like, they thought, like, maybe I was schizophrenic or something.
Interesting.
But
how many years before they said PTSD?
I believe I was like 11 when they finally, like, okay, she really has it, because I always talked about going backwards, where that's why they thought I was schizophrenic, because I was time traveling. Right. But once they figured out,
just kids use descriptive language.
Yeah, once they found out I don't go forwards, I go backwards. Yeah. That's when they were like, okay, she's having flashbacks. Yeah. But I think they didn't want to diagnose me so young.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, because those diagnoses,
they last.
They can take on a long, like, they can affect things. If you ever wanted to be in the military, over here, trying, guys. Sorry. If you ever, like, if you ever want to be in the military, certain jobs, like, in the mental health field, we really try to be careful about giving diagnoses to children or even to adults, really, because those things can affect people. Not always, but you never know what your future holds. So that makes sense that they would want to take a long time to do that. Now, as you got older, I mean, you're married now, yes? Is it okay for us to ask a little about, like, does it ever affect marriage?
Yes. And I think that that's okay because I don't see how somebody that's been through sexual abuse, how it wouldn't affect. You just need a person that really understands. Because I have flashbacks, and when I have them, well, my husband knows to just leave me alone.
Give her some space.
Don't touch her.
Right. Just leave.
And he has to deal with my nightmares at night. And that can get a little violent. I have hit him.
Have you beaten him?
Yes, I have beaten him
My
at
wife
night.
beats me.
And
Not on purpose, obviously, but
but he's had to get used to that.
Yeah.
But
He just wears a helmet.
yeah, he just wears a helmet and a cup and everything.
Oh, yeah. Definitely a cop.
I'm like, I'm gonna kill you.
I mean, he'll wake me up or like nudge me like you're having a nightmare.
Yeah.
But with my medication, it kind of blocks my nightmares, but I still have like all the feelings.
Yeah.
You just don't remember them?
Yeah, like I'll remember like parts of them, but I still, when I wake up, I have like the pain. It's the pain like down there that really like, okay, I had a nightmare. There's no hiding that. But my medication makes it so I don't really remember my nightmares.
You still have the emotional feelings afterwards.
Yes, nausea.
Oh.
I get very nauseous.
Well, so let me tell the audience about the therapeutic side of this too. No, this is important. So trauma is stored in the body. And people say that all the time, but like, what does that really mean? And so you're describing, I mean, she's describing it perfectly. So like, you may not even remember the incident. So like they're giving you this medicine, like, oh, this should fix it, because the dreams, you won't remember the dreams, but you don't remember it in necessarily the visuals. You remember it in the way you feel things and the way your body stored that trauma. And so what you're describing there is the different ways that your body has like taken on that pain, as you describe, and keep it. And so some of like the ways that people are working through this is even through doing more body type treatments, like doing yogas where they're doing some of that trigger response stuff, or even doing massage type therapies where they're still working through that treatment. Or like, have you ever done things like EMDR or anything? None of those. They're just ways that, depending on, there's different ways that people do treatment, but like,
How do they treat yours? Like,
well, tell us about that.
Mainly it was a lot of talking because I just had so many secrets and I was so ashamed that it took forever for me to actually talk about it. Yeah. Like openly, like even to like my best friend. Like my friends didn't realize how much trauma I went through. Because my girlfriend, I mean, we've been friends for like 20 years. She helped me write my story. Yeah. And it looked like she was going to cry like a lot. And I was just standing there telling my story. But with my years of therapy, it was just like telling a story and seeing the effects on her. It's kind of like, oh, wow.
Because you've told it so many times to your therapist.
And she never knew the extent. And she was like, oh my God, you make so much more sense.
Yeah.
After 20 years of friendship.
I didn't make any sense before. The first 20 years, no sense at all. You're senseless.
She just knew I was going into psych wards, and people just thought, oh, she's crazy. Yeah. But now she's like, well, no wonder why you were acting that way and going in and out of psych wards.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not that you're crazy. It's that you're working through some pretty intense stuff.
Yeah.
I don't think anybody can go through that and not come out with some battle wounds. Definitely.
Oh, yeah. Getting out of it, and like when I would go to the hospitals and stuff and hear other people's stories, it made it more comfortable because it was like a safe place. Like everybody had a problem.
Sure.
So we just shared our problems. It was kind of like group. Yeah. And so it was much more open. Yeah. And it made it a lot easier to talk about.
Yeah, it's easier to share your problem with other people who have problems Because they're not going to judge you
Yeah.
for being there, because they're also there.
They were also still shocked.
Yeah.
Even in the psych ward,
Sure.
they were still shocked.
Still, like, oh my God. That's
Yeah.
horrible.
Yeah, most people are.
I'm curious about this. Like, what is, if somebody is telling their story, like they're finally coming out, what would you suggest to a person who's listening is like the best thing that they could do, or the most helpful things to do when they're really listening? Because what if like the first time somebody comes out to somebody about it, it's like their friend or like a family member, you know what I mean? So what advice would you give to people?
I would say just listen. Take it seriously. Don't try to jump in and share like one of like your like stories that doesn't even add up. Like
Right.
I was
that
in
totally happened to me.
I was in this horrible car accident.
I totally stubbed my toe,
Yeah, like you're so
White boy
sensitive.
problems.
Right. Don't make it about you. It's about
like listen.
the person sharing their story.
Be serious. Ask them if they want a hug, because a lot of times people don't like. When I was little, I didn't want to be touched. If I shared my story, that was like, no, get away from me.
Right.
But when I came out to some of my friends, they were really surprised, and some of them did not do the appropriate things, and some of them did. They sat and listened, and that's really what it is.
Well, and I want to, again, so the therapeutic side for why that's important. So one thing you said that I want everybody to know is the asking. It's consent. The very definition of an abuse is that it's non-consensual. Everything that happened, right? And so even at the very basic level, asking to say, hey, is it okay if I hug you, is somebody getting your consent and giving you a space to come at them from power, not feeling controlled.
Yeah, that's a big thing.
Yeah. And in your relationship too, or in other people, for people who are listening who struggle with this, everything in your relationship has to come from a sense of feeling empowered and in control of your life. And so that's why even with your husband, for example, when he if he were to try and grab you,
yeah, that's not a good idea.
No, and that's the point, because you're already you're in fear from that space of not being in consent, not being in control. So that's why you shouldn't just come up to somebody and grab them or try and hold them, because it doesn't fix it. It can actually make it worse because it's another non-consensual act, even though it's meant to be supportive.
Right.
Yeah, I say, would you ever sneak up on somebody that was in Vietnam or just came
they'll
back
shoot
from
you.
war? Yeah, they might hurt you. So
It really
you
will.
shouldn't be jumping up on somebody with any PTSD.
Yeah.
No surprise. Well,
Yeah, I think people understand PTSD a little more when it comes to war, because we've heard so much more about it. But I don't think people quite understand that it's in other parts of people's lives. With sexual trauma and other traumas.
It's a different way.
It's a different way that you were triggered.
Yeah, but I mean, still loud noises and stuff can be people's triggers. I mean, but yeah, that's why I wanted to talk about post-traumatic stress, is because people just don't understand it at all.
Yeah.
They don't get it, that it's all in our head. It's an invisible wound.
Yeah. Well, and then people kind of respond and they're confused, right? So in men, do you want to hold it for me real quick?
Yeah.
My husband's really good at holding my live streamer. So in men have been socialized to either be angry or calm. I'm not saying you don't have other emotions. Actually, men do.
No,
but
I have those two.
You have other emotions, but because men have been socialized to only show those two, a lot of times their PTSD symptoms will show out in aggression. And it's confusing, because if you don't know that the PTSD is happening, then if you're the wife, you might just say, wow, he's just being an asshole.
Yeah, you're just being weird.
But I could see that happening in a women's case too. I mean, you may have more of the broad range of emotions, but for women, it can show in aggression too. It can show in complete shutdown and icing out your partner.
I do that.
Yeah.
I will shut down. And that's when I just go to bed and I'll watch stuff on my phone, and because I will shut down. And I have a lot of issues. When I wake up, I get very nauseous from waking up from dreams, and that has affected a lot of my life.
Yeah.
Because I'll get sick for hours, and people are like, I don't get it. And it's from stress, from waking up.
That's interesting. I didn't know you could get sick from stress.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, actually, men more than women.
I got it.
Oh, you got it? You want to do it?
Yeah.
Okay. He's doing it from now on. He's taking the phone. So actually, men more than women will do this sickness, but women can do it just as much. The only reason it's a little bit more common in men is that because they only have those two feelings, so that they're allowed
have more than two.
They
feelings.
do, but they're only allowed to express two often, depending on how extreme the family life was. So what'll happen is they'll have things like heart attacks that they feel are heart attacks, but are panic attacks. Although women can have this too.
I've heard that a lot. Like people think, "Oh my God, I'm having a heart attack," and really they're just having a panic attack. And I'll tell them, it's okay. You just got to calm down. Yeah. You're not going to have a heart attack. It just feels like you're having one.
Because it's happening in your body and it's so strong. Yeah. And most people don't know what to do with that. They're like, I need to go to the doctor. And sometimes you do. Don't get me wrong. I do want you guys. My PSA for today is please still go to the doctor. Not everything is a panic attack.
Not everything is a heart attack. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's hard because how do you decipher it? And if you're the partner, what do you do? And who is this? And why are they acting like this? You could be completely confused by your partner's behaviors.
So, how do you work through a trigger or do you get panic attacks?
Yes, okay, I do get panic attacks.
How do you work through them? How did you first identify that they're happening, or?
Yeah, it's pretty noticeable.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, that was a panic attack. No.
But do you know in the moment when it's happening?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Because I know when they're almost like, okay, I'm getting really panicky, and sometimes it just gets worse.
Yeah.
But usually I just breathe, and I put my arms up and breathe in, and then slowly bring my arms down, so it's almost like I'm more grounded, and I feel more grounded. But with the whole... the men and emotions, I'm married to a Sicilian.
He's from Sicily?
No, his family is.
His family is. I loved Italy.
I loved Italy, but
those are my people.
But the feelings, they have
they really express them, all of them.
Not really, happy and anger.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And that's why I loved them.
Understand.
That's why I loved them. Those were my two emotions.
No, you guys have more, I promise.
It's hard to for just being a guy and dealing with this with your significant other. I mean, when you're raised a certain way, it's hard. We've been together for 8 years. And so he's learned a lot, how to deal basically with me.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I've learned how to deal with her.
Oh, yeah. He's learning every
any
day.
Marriage. Oh, yeah.
And I was afraid of a lot of things in the relationship. We've only been married for 1.5 years.
Yeah.
And this is our 8th year of being together because I was so nervous. I always judged myself, can this person deal with me? Yeah. That's what I always thought. Can they put up with my crap that comes along with
apparently
me?
He can, at least for 8 years.
Yeah.
Congratulations, by the way. I mean,
Thank you.
It's hard actually to make it to 8 years.
Yeah, it was a struggle, and he's listened and he's learned a lot, and he knows how to, deal with it.
Knows how to handle you a little better.
Yes.
Yeah. So
yes.
does he know how to actually help you when you're in kind of a triggered mode?
Usually I'll just tell him.
Yeah. But he's good at responding to what you need in that.
Yeah, I kind of dissociate. I get this blank look on my face, and I'm just kind of staring off into the distance. Or one thing I do is I click my nails together.
Oh, yeah, like that.
Yeah, so you can. Yeah, so
if
he hears that going around the apartment, then he knows. Okay.
See, I always do that in bed, and my hand will be right next to her head, and I'll be clicking, and she'll be like, "What are you doing?"
Yes.
Yeah, drives her mad.
Mine is I rub my curls. I'm always messing with my curls constantly.
Yeah,
that's my nervous tick.
I just play with my hair all the time.
Well, it's pretty hair. That's funny.
So then he knows when you're in that state and follow what you need in there.
Sometimes it's not as noticeable. So I have to tell him today was a really bad day.
Right.
Or I'll actually go up to him and say, I need a hug.
Yeah. Oh, that's sweet.
And that's a really big thing that I started in my family is that we go up to, even my brother goes up to my parents and he'll say, can I have a hug?
Yeah.
So that's something that's happened in the family because I had such issues with hugging that my mom didn't know, can I touch her right now? Can I hug her? So I would just start asking for hugs when I was prepared and when I was ready.
Yeah.
So I even passed that along in my family.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I think
That's
it's a
good.
good thing to do. Actually, we used to teach foster and adoptive families to do that because, a lot of kids who come from foster and adoptive homes or, who are being fostered, there's an abuse. There's a reason why they go away. So we always would do that with the parents because, you want to hold the kid. You want to make them feel safe. But like if you don't ask, then it doesn't feel safe. And it's also you're a little foreign to them. So, no, that makes perfect sense. Now, what happens? So like in some of my clients, like the romance sometimes is a little tough. So, there are any ways are there any ways that you guys have learned to make that a little easier?
Yeah. Has that affected your romantic life or your sex life?
Yes, it does. Because I walk by triggers all the time. So if I get a lot of triggers that day, I'm not going to want.
You're not in the mood.
Of course.
No.
Yeah.
And a problem that I have is I have to keep myself from taking showers.
Showers.
Okay.
Why is that?
Because I feel dirty, and I'll take showers
It's
at like
compulsive.
I want to take a shower because I feel so gross when I'm like having flashbacks and everything. And I'll take showers at like 3:00 in the morning, and my husband's like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "I'm taking a shower. I'm stressed out." But I mean, in the bedroom, it is hard.
Yeah.
Because guys are much more sexual than women sometimes. And if I'm having, I just, I have to be like, I'm just not in the mood. I can't make myself in the mood.
Right.
And that is a struggle.
Yeah.
I'm sure that's really hard to put up with.
Well, I mean, to be fair, I think even women, and even in situations where that isn't the case, I mean, I think a lot of times people feel pressured when so like in any relationship, all right, put myself in here. Hi, guys. So in any relationship, there's a higher desire partner and a lower desire partner. And one of the challenges for all my couples is when you're the higher desire partner, how do I handle this? How do I, not pressure my partner, but I also really want to bang them.
And that's a big problem.
Yeah, and then the person who's the lower desire partner always feels like, oh, am I doing it enough? Am I being a good partner? Like across the board, all my couples struggle with this.
I think like that all the time. Like, I wish I could be better, but I try to be, but it's like I just can't control it. Over the years, I'm getting better.
Yeah.
But it's just hard. It's hard to explain it.
Yeah, it just happens. And it can happen sometimes in the sexual experiences. And go on, you were going to say something.
I did have that problem when I was younger. And with boyfriends in the past
You were triggered during the
Yeah,
act
I was triggered.
because your trauma had to do with sex. So
and it was very difficult. So, and even now later in life, it can be a challenge, but luckily I went and got a ton of help.
Yeah.
And he understands. I'm sure it's very frustrating,
Sure.
but he definitely gets it more.
Yeah.
It's not that I'm not attracted to him, which I think is hard to understand. It's not that I'm not attracted to him. It's just that my brain's like, I can't handle this right now.
Right. No, it's like you're either in the mood or you're not.
Yeah.
And if you're thinking about traumatic experiences,
There's nothing
you're
sexy
not
about
gonna
that.
be in the mood.
Yeah, there's nothing I can do.
Let's just put it out there. There's nothing sexy about
Right.
trauma, guys.
Right.
Seriously.
It's the opposite of that. Which, I mean, some of my best outcomes for sex therapy and trauma is basically goes back to consent and is helping couples get to a point where at basically every step of the road in their sexual experience, there's consent happening. And for some of my couples, for example, if a dissociation is happening during a sexual experience, I even coach them to stop the experience for a time to support each other, to come back to a space of safety. And sometimes when they get into that habit of being able to stop the situation and like take care of each other for a time, then they're able to go back in with a little more control. Because a lot of even the dissociation is a version of non-consent. When somebody is out in the void in their head, they're not able or capable to consent to something that's happening in that moment. And
I never thought of that.
No, yeah, it's a non-consensual act. And so what you have to do when somebody dissociates is find a way to bring
Pull
them
them back, yeah.
You can't keep having sex in a dissociated space. You have to stop, reconnect to your center, reconnect to each other, come back from a safe space, and then re-enter the sexual experience if they feel good enough from a consensual act. And if not, it's okay also having a partner who's very understanding, who's totally like, you know what, we can cuddle, we can hold each other, we can watch a show, whatever you need, we can just talk. And what's interesting is when my couples learn to do that rather well, then sometimes it could just take 10 minutes and they come right back into the sexual experience. Yeah. Other times it isn't, but there's this deep respect for the fact that, no, some of these things aren't going to work out and we love each other no matter what.
No. I mean, if you get any extreme emotion during sex, it's going to be hard to come out. Even if you just get mad at your partner in the middle of sex.
Yeah.
Oh,
you're not going to say, oh, yeah, let's keep going.
Yeah.
I'm just going to angrily bang you.
Anger bang.
Anger bang. Wow,
No.
that's interesting. So anyhow.
Yeah, nobody wants an angry hand job.
Oh, well.
They never.
Are you sure, Josh?
Well, the tears do make
for good
use.
lubrication.
Yeah, exactly. But no, I'm not a big fan of the angry hand job, though.
Not a big fan of the angry hand.
Not at all.
I love it. So I'll just tell a story, not our story, but a story.
What story are you telling? I gotta hold on a second. Hold on.
No,
What
I
are you
won't tell anybody, but it's just a story I've heard from some of my couples that's hilarious, right?
Okay.
So, like, what's an angry handy? So all of you know what an angry handy is. Here, hold this one for
All
me.
right. I'll hold the
So,
camera for the
an
angry handy.
hand job is basically when you may have had just recently had a fight with your partner and you're still kind of struggling with the feelings of anger.
like,
And then your partner is like, hey, why don't we do something? You know, they're trying to get sexy and you're pretty angry at them. So you offer a hand job.
Compromise with a hand
Because
job.
you're pretty pissed at them, but you're like, whatever, I want to do my duty. But then what's happening while you're giving an angry hand job is like, I hate that you're such an asshole. And that's an angry handy. You shouldn't do it. It's not actually great for your relationship. It's better to talk.
I'm sure he would appreciate that too.
Well, you know what's funny is the guys like if you don't show them your face, then like
then you don't
they're
realize
just
it.
enjoying a hand job.
No, I would look over and all of a sudden I see a grumpy face. I'm like,
What's
what is going on there? You
I
give me
didn't
an
tell our
angry
story,
handy.
but you've been there before.
You
where it's
totally
like,
give me an angry
I've
handy.
given him an angry handy before, and he's like, Angela, I don't want an angry handy. Talk to me. Let's get to a positive.
Please don't hurt me.
This was early in our marriage, you know, and even me as a sex therapist, I'm kind of like, you know, I know the importance of sex. So I've been in places at times where I'm like, this is something important to our relationship. But like, while sex is important, it's not as important as you guys being close and
It shouldn't just be a one-way street.
And
either.
it shouldn't be a one-way street.
Yeah.
Exactly. Thank you, honey. That's really sweet.
Well, what did I do?
Well, he was really good about it. He's like, Angela, don't give me angry handies.
No.
That's a really good way to put
They
it.
sound sexy in theory, but in
It's
reality,
not.
they are
It is
not.
not sexy.
No.
No angry handies.
No, tears do not work out. Man.
Oh, your tears are so delicious.
Oh, you're bringing Cartman up in here.
I know, right?
So, has learning to cope with this helped you in other parts of your life?
Yeah, it makes me very patient
Yeah,
with other people.
interesting.
I understand kids more. Like I'm more patient with them. A lot of people come and talk to me about their problems. They feel very open, even if they don't know my past. They're still very open with me and tell me like their deep personal stuff. And
Yeah.
maybe it's because I've been in therapy so long that, you know, I've learned like tricks and stuff.
Yeah, who knows?
Yeah, you become
People
more
do the same
pathetic.
thing with me, but then we record it, so I think it's fun.
It can get awkward, huh?
Yeah,
But it's definitely like made a difference.
yeah.
Just like dealing with people. I have more patience. Now I do have I still have that fear, no offense to men, but I still have that fear. I have that fear of like flight, like I have an escape route no matter where I am.
Mm-hmm.
I have to. Like even if I'm in my psychiatrist office, I'm like, okay, I can go this way and get out.
You
And-
always know your exits.
Yes, I
Yeah.
always scan. I know my exits.
Interesting.
My
Just like a cowboy in the Old West.
yeah.
Yep.
My second psychiatrist.
She never knows her exits.
I never do.
I'm like, how do you not know?
but I'm aware of it when I have clients in the office because I know they need to know their exit. So I try not to sit in front of the door intentionally.
Yeah. My second psychiatrist, who was amazing, he I started seeing him, I think, when I was 13, and he kept me on until I was 27.
Wow.
Maybe 28. And he was for children, but he knew I wasn't going to trust anybody.
Yeah, it takes a long time to build that trust.
Yeah, and he's like, I know that, and that's where I got the escape route. He's like, I know you have an escape route right here. Right now, and it's been a decade that we've known each other, and I'm like, yeah, I do.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
No, it's normal. And actually, most people who go through PTSD, to some, like even, like vets and even people who've been in the car accidents we described, they'll have an escape route. Every room they go in, they are ready, and they're ready to grab a weapon too. Usually.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
They are ready to grab
You
a
know
weapon.
how to
I can
make
take
weapons.
this to attack somebody. I can take
That
this.
chair, you can use that pole, you can use that table. You
it's
could
a
use the
protective-
pictures on the wall.
Yeah, it's protective mechanism. I think
Yeah.
our body does that because, you're basically protecting for any future harm. So in some ways you're just more prepared.
You're more alert and prepared. So when somebody breaks into your home, you're on it.
You're ready to go attack them
You're
with
ready
a
to
bat.
attack them naked and chase them outside.
This is
And
our story.
That's our story, yeah.
I have noticed though that since I have been abused, that in the earlier I would get into these really abusive relationships and think this is as good as it's going to get.
Oh, that sucks.
Because who's going to want me? So I did have that big problem because they were just horrible people.
Yeah.
And now I look back and I'm like,
Like, what was
oh
I
my
thinking?"
God.
Luckily,
is
you're not in
horrible.
that relationship still.
Oh yeah. I mean, I don't know. I guess like they just see like us like being vulnerable or something. And they were a target, but I've heard a lot of people that have been through sexual abuse, they get in these horrible relationships.
Yeah.
And the relationships are abusive too, and
Yeah.
you just take it because you're not used to anything else.
Yeah, well, that's a big reason for why it happens is that, like you've already had a situation where essentially your boundaries were destroyed in the initial relationship. So then in other relationships, it's hard to know where those boundaries are and what is a red flag. Like if you kind of, if you didn't have that happen, then like people can start to identify like red flags up front. But if you didn't know that, then it's hard then in the new relationship to figure out like what's the kind of person that's a good person or a bad person. What is emotional abuse? Like even that, it's hard. It's funny because like even it's hard to define for people. Like, okay, well we're yelling at each other, but we're both yelling at each other. So are we both emotionally abusive, or is it him, or is it, and so some of it is also just difficulty in defining what's a good relationship and a bad relationship too.
No, you can kind of tell a toxic relationship though if you're always arguing constantly or
But
Yeah.
something like
if
that.
you've already been like abused, you just think what I always thought was, well, this isn't as bad.
Oh,
Like I've
I
dealt
see.
with more.
yeah.
Like, okay, I'm not being raped or anything, but he's putting me down every second to control me or distance
sucks.
me from my family.
Yeah.
And
Those are red flags, by the way.
those are huge red flags
Yeah.
that I just thought, well, this is as good as it's going to get because I don't deserve any better. And luckily I'll snap out of it, and it takes a while, but I would snap out of it. But the red flags are huge.
Yeah, well, and they're hard to detect, exactly, because, like you said, if the bar is here, and then, like, they're above that bar, then it's like, well, don't I have a better situation?
You have to learn to set your bar higher.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, you do.
You have to
'Cause
build your own self-confidence a little bit.
a lot of people don't have enough self-confidence, I don't think.
Oh, yeah, nobody does.
And
We don't have any. Not any here.
well,
Not
I
at all.
definitely did not. Because even like they say like grooming for sexual abuse, I think it's like almost like an abusive relationship they're grooming you.
Yeah.
Like the bar goes higher and higher and higher. Like what are you going to deal with? And then when you finally get out of that relationship, in my case, they're like, I'm going to kill myself. And I'm like, oh my God. And then finally I realized he's not going to do that. He's
Yeah.
just trying to control me. And trying to keep me.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, like, ideas of just for you all to know at home, like, what's a red flag
You
if
just
you're
ended
kind of.
that. That's fine.
Oh
Keep
no!
going.
All right, well
Keep
that's
talking.
fine. We'll keep it anyways.
Put it down.
Here we go. All right, it's done. We did a pretty good job. I'm distracted by the phone anyways.
Yeah, you're not doing
But so,
that again.
you're like, stop that, Angela.
Stop it.
Well, we usually keep the thing over there.
Yep,
but
that'll
that's no
happen
big
again
deal.
next time. You're too, like...
I know. I'm too all over the place with
Yep,
the live stream. My
that's not
husband
happening.
wanted me to do it.
Nope,
But anyhow,
not that way, but go on.
So, all right. So, like, put downs are like, you wouldn't survive without me. I don't know why. You're not good enough. Like,
Or calling
you're
you names.
calling
or
you
calling
names,
Yes.
calling you stupid, or why
Like
would you do
negative-
something so stupid? You know,
Like saying negative things about your
negative-
appearance or your
the
personality.
distancing from your family or the isolating is like always having some problem with your friends or your family. Like, I don't want to hang out with them. But then, okay, so like, and I want to put like a caveat here because there are times when you don't like somebody's friends or family. Like, that is
yeah.
a thing that
Yeah.
happens. But the difference is, look, you can hang out with your family. I don't care. I don't want to hang out with them. So they're making a boundary for themselves.
Yeah.
Versus, I don't want us to hang out with. You're not allowed to hang out with your family. You're not allowed to hang out with that person again. And even like saying it in that way, you're not allowed. You're like, it's a demand. It's enforcing something instead of just saying, hey, I'd prefer it if we didn't hang out with them as much. It's just different, you know, like that. The difference between asking for a boundary
They're
versus
trying to act
forcing
like
somebody,
you're superior.
almost like a superior, yeah,
Right.
a parent.
Yeah.
Right.
And I think it just comes on so gradually that you
Right.
don't even
In the first-
notice it.
Yeah, in the beginning, like everything's puppy dogs and rainbows
Yeah.
with any relationship. But then slowly over time, you get to know them.
Yes. And like my most abusive relationship, it was very difficult. He was basically a sociopath. Well, he is one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you don't grow out of that one.
Yeah. It's just a phase.
Yeah,
just a
you'll be
phase.
fine. But I mean, he's very manipulative, and he actually stalked me for 10 years.
Whoa.
Wow.
And I put him in jail 3 times. And he still contacted me 2 years ago.
Sorry, that would give me PTSD if somebody's stalking
It
you.
did.
Good
Yeah,
lord.
of
I-
course.
I didn't, I never say like my name at work because I'm afraid, like, because he set it up before, like to find where I am.
He's like tracked you down.
Oh, yeah. He's tracked me down. I mean, in total, his time in jail was 1.5 years. But he would get out and then do it again, and then he'd get put back in.
Even after being in jail, he still wanted to be with you?
Yeah. Yeah, he still wanted to be with me, or give me threatening phone calls and then give me a phone call of how much he cared about me.
Though there were 2 separate phone calls.
Yeah.
Of course. Because you first call and threaten, and then you say, oh, baby, I'm sorry. I love you. Like,
Yeah, and I actually found out that he was stalking me before we were broken up.
Yeah. Wait, before you were even broken up, he was stalking you?
Yes.
How did he do that?
Multiple phone calls to my work of threatening my life, but he would use like a different voice.
Yeah.
A lot of hang-ups on my cell phone, and he actually, it's really messed up, is the one that convinced me to file a police report. He went in with me because he wanted to act like the protector, like, I'm here to protect you. I'm your hero.
A police report against himself?
Yes.
What?
What?
But I didn't know that it was him, and he didn't think that, I guess the police couldn't figure it out.
Wait. Take it a step.
Wait,
How did
so he
how
was
did he go in-
stalking you and causing all this scariness.
But then how did he help
but
you with
then-
the police?
So he convinced me to go to the police station. He helped me fill
He convinced
out.
you.
Yes.
He called
But
you,
she
or-
didn't know it was him at this
Yeah,
time.
I
That's
didn't
the
know
point.
it was him.
Who was, he called and said he was somebody else, or how
Yeah,
did-
he would use like different numbers or use block
So
numbers.
he was stalking her. It was all a ruse, Josh. It was a ruse. And
But then he said, "I'll help you file a report against your stalker."
against your
against
stalker.
your
boyfriend,
stalker.
who
Who's
is
you?
Him.
Because he's like the hero that's going to protect me from this person.
How'd that
And
work
he's
out?
the person that's unprotective and dangerous.
And he helped me fill out the police report.
Well, he went down with you and actually.
Yeah. It's so weird.
I'm thinking he's schizophrenic or something.
He's something.
Like that's not normal. Wait,
Josh just broke.
he just broke me. Wait. In person, did he say his name was something else?
No, he would never. Oh, no.
Because he showed up and went to the police station with you.
Well, yeah, because he was like, this person is threatening your life on the phone. You know,
Oh, okay, but
they're
it-
leaving notes on your
I see.
car.
So he was threatening you, but you didn't know it was him threatening you?
Yeah.
Okay. I thought you
Yeah,
knew
no,
it was
that's
him
the point.
threatening
It's a
you.
ruse.
yeah.
He's creating a situation
He
where she's in
created-
danger that he can protect her from.
I got it.
Oh, it took him a long time. It's kind of like a Munchausen syndrome thing, right?
No,
like when a mom...
It's hard to understand. 'Cause
No,
people
I
are like,
caught
wait
it
a
now.
second.
I caught it now. He was tricking you into thinking somebody else was stalking
Yes.
you, and then was being your savior.
Yes.
Yeah, he's
Good
protecting you from
Lord.
himself, but he's not telling you it's himself.
Right, of
Yes.
course. See, I thought you knew it was him, and then he was still
No,
helping you.
he helped me fill it out and everything, and like talk to the police officers.
And how did you find it was him?
Well, wherever the phone calls came from, it led back to him.
So the police actually found it was him.
Yeah. And the problem with that is that even though they knew it was him, he had to do like 300 things before I could actually get like a full restraining order. Like it took so much of him to do.
Is it that hard to get a restraining order?
Yes, and it's very hard to get them arrested for a restraining order.
Yeah.
That's terrible.
It's
so
hard-
the thing
it's
that's
hard to
supposed to
enforce it?
protect you.
Even after you have it, it's hard to get enforced.
Yes, I had a lot of problems.
That sucks. I thought that's the
And-
point of a restraining order.
Yeah, basically it was kind of like I have a piece of paper I can throw at you.
Yeah.
That's how I felt because I would go to the police and I'd be like, okay, he's doing this again. There's notes on my car.
Yes.
And they're like, okay, well, we'll make a report. And it would like add up to like, I had like a book to like write down times and what he said and when he called. And he's very manipulative. And actually, the judge that finally put him in jail, I think the second time, he said, do you own a gun? Because he's in the courtroom throwing himself on the table
He's throwing himself on the table?
and crying and saying, I've been framed and all that stuff. And I wasn't in the courtroom, and the judge actually said, do you have a gun? And I was like, no. He said, well, you might want to get one.
Oh
Yeah.
my gosh.
And I
Of
was,
course.
I was like, oh my God.
Did you get one?
No. I'd probably shoot my foot.
Yeah.
You could always get pepper spray.
Yeah.
Well, the thing is that I didn't realize this near the end. I thought he had a cold. He was a heroin addict.
Oh.
Oh.
And I thought he had a
Do
cold.
heroin addicts seem to have colds?
They snort.
They snore.
They snort the
They
drug.
snort the heroin. I see.
Yeah, that's
so
how
it's always like,
Yeah, and I was
Okay.
like,
Oh,
okay.
that's what's going on. No,
yeah.
no, I have allergies
I
for the
know
last
Josh
2
has
years.
allergies,
That's
but
what
I'm
I
like,
thought.
oh, heroin makes perfect sense.
No, I haven't
I'm
had
just
heroin
kidding.
in like months.
I thought that, oh, he has a cold. Now it's allergy season. But then things started disappearing. Like money. I wasn't allowed to have my own cell phone half the time.
Really?
And I lived
he
at
restrict your
home.
ability to use a cell phone? He did?
Yeah, he would take my cell phone. He would take my car. And I lived at home. I was completely brainwashed.
Yeah.
Now that I look back at it, I'm like, my God.
You were in a little bit of a like
I was in an
kidnap situation there, it sounds like.
Yeah, and
Captivity.
yes, it was.
Because he's restricting your ability to communicate with the outside
And
world.
I was living at home and I was disconnected from my family. I was right downstairs.
Yeah.
And he just was really good at it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
He sounds really annoying.
he is. He's
Terrible
a
person.
horrible person.
Good Lord.
And
So you got 2 stories, actually. It's not
yes,
just
I
that
do.
one. That's crazy.
But I kept going and I kept filing a restraining order. And it is extremely hard to serve somebody when they're homeless.
Yeah. Yeah, what address do you put on the paper?
Yeah.
Like the cops would have to track him down.
So he was homeless.
Yes,
For-
because he
Because
still
he
is.
kept going in and out of jail and stuff.
Well, the drugs. He's still
Oh, yeah,
homeless.
the drugs do that too, yeah.
I'm sure.
Yeah,
'Cause-
the drugs make you crazy too. He probably has some brain
That part
damage
of
from
it,
doing
that
a
might
lot
be
of
part
heroin.
of it too.
Yeah.
But anyhow, that's another one of those red flags if somebody's trying to control your access to the outside
Yeah.
world.
Oh,
that,
yeah.
that guy is definitely a red flag.
No, I know,
Yeah.
but for people in the beginning
Sure.
stages, somebody saying
Control.
you can't take your phone.
Right.
Why? Why
Well,
do you have a choice in that?
It first was, oh, I need to borrow your phone today for a
I
job.
see.
Okay.
And then it just kept
Oh, that's
escalating and
important to know.
escalating. And, oh, I need to use can I use your car today? And it was like, yeah, you can use my car.
Mm-hmm.
Like, to go to work and drop me off. Well, he didn't go to work because he didn't have a job.
Mm-hmm.
He just drove around.
He's probably
So, I mean, it was...
looking for heroin.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because he was on that at the very end of the relationship.
Mm-hmm.
And I started watching actually Intervention, and I was like, hey.
Oh, it's all making sense.
Yeah, like, oh my God, that really just, okay.
Goodness.
But yeah, I mean, I still go through that. I'm still paranoid about that. I'm sure he's very happy about that.
I would be.
I mean, he's,
You'd be
that's-
paranoid,
I would
not
be
the happy
paranoid.
part.
No, I would not be happy at all. No.
oh, I'm
Like-
sure I mean, he contacted me 2 years ago on Facebook, and I was in the police station immediately.
Yeah.
File a report. And that's what they said. Send him a message that says, I am in the police station right now. I'm making a report. Please do not contact me in any form ever again.
Yeah.
And
When's the last time he contacted? 2 years? Was that
yeah,
it?
like 2 years ago.
Yeah.
But yeah, even his parents were like,
Do you think he'll try again?
probably.
Yeah.
I would not be surprised. I mean,
He live nearby? Or is it?
oh, I don't know where
You don't even know. You have no idea.
Yeah, he could be under a car. I have no idea.
Hopefully not near here. I don't want to meet that guy.
No.
No.
But yeah, I mean, it wasn't as bad maybe because I knew how to deal with it after.
Mm-hmm.
Like once I got out of it, I was like, oh my God, I really put up with all
Now
that.
you know how to avoid bad relationships. Because you had
Yeah,
the
that was-
mother of all bad relationships.
That was a huge wake up call. Like,
Stalkers do that.
and the fact that I lived at home and he had this much control over me.
Yeah. You were
That-
living with parents?
Yeah, I was
And
living.
they didn't notice
It was so
at
I
all?
hid.
Yeah.
I hid everything.
You kept everything from your
because
parents.
I was embarrassed. And now that I look back, it's just like the abuse I had as a child. I shouldn't be embarrassed.
No.
He should be embarrassed. And it did give me it does give me some flashbacks, but not as severe because I think I knew how to deal with it from my therapy before.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and you bring up a key emotion there. I think sometimes people feel embarrassed or ashamed. And it's hard because I think it just naturally associates with that. Any sort of trauma, people, it's already kind of like the way it's even created or started is in secret. So like something about even secrets have this attachment of shame to them, like, oh, we're not supposed to tell these things. So I just want people who are listening to know that like that's really a normal first response to kind of be embarrassed or ashamed. But then we're doing shows like this to encourage people to know that like it's okay for you guys to come out and talk about this, that while you may feel a little shame or embarrassment, my hope is that all of the people listening will feel eventually empowered and supported by the people around them.
And once you get out of it and like you have some time to yourself and you look back, you're like, oh my God, I can't believe I did that. I
Yeah.
can't believe I put up with that. I'm so much worth more
Yeah.
than
You definitely are. Come
all
on.
of that.
Yeah.
I mean, he was just
He
insane.
definitely is. Like,
Yeah.
there's
Yeah.
no doubt,
No doubt.
at all. If somebody does those things,
Yeah, going to the police station to file a report against yourself, that was a new one.
a new one for me. Yeah,
Yeah.
I did not expect to hear that story today.
The police were very shocked.
It's like,
They were shocked when they found out who it was.
Wow.
Yeah, I would think they would because he was there to help.
He was like,
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Like, that's straight up sociopath. Like,
Oh, yeah.
yeah,
He's just, I mean, even his parents say that.
yeah.
When it started getting really bad, they noticed and they said, you need to get away now.
yeah.
So maybe the drugs were making him worse too. Like,
I think
Yeah.
he was crazy before,
Yeah.
and the drugs made it worse, and
Let's-
and I was like the source of money to get the
I
drugs
see.
because my card would go missing a lot, my ATM card.
It would just disappear.
Yeah, and then show up like under the car seat.
No, yeah.
Like, oh, there's where it is.
Not a baby car seat, but the car
Car,
seat.
under the seat.
It's like,
Yeah.
you don't know where it went.
Yeah, and after like, a few times, it's like, okay, I might be forgetful, but I'm not that forgetful.
Yeah. I don't normally stick things deep under the seat.
Yeah.
Pull it out of my wallet,
Yeah.
Hide.
Makes sense. Good Lord. You have very
You have an
interesting
interesting
stories.
story.
I've lived a very interesting life.
Definitely have.
And that's only two of them.
You got another? You want to share?
Well, it's not a struggle. It's not really a struggle that I had. My little sister, she's autistic, and I love her to death. And She's actually helped me a lot through the years.
Yeah?
I mean, it's
How's
a
that?
happy story.
Yeah.
It's not actually a sad
Hey,
story.
I like
Happiness.
I would love to hear some happy stories.
She
Send on
is
hope, right?
Yeah.
she is a piece of work. I think she actually brought our family a lot closer.
Yeah.
Because like we actually had to hug each other to teach her how to hug.
Oh, that's sweet.
Oh,
So she's 19. She can like make her own food and do her own laundry, which consists of like one sock. But she's doing it. But then again, she
did
can
it.
never be left alone.
okay.
Yeah.
But she makes you happy because she looks like a little kid, even though she's 19. And yes, she's very frustrating, but she does really funny stuff sometimes. And it's like, okay, you really just did that, didn't you?
Like, what's an example?
I'm trying to think. There's a lot that are probably inappropriate. Well,
Those are the best
Those are the best stories.
yeah,
we
but my
wanna be
mom's going to listen to
respectful.
this. She's going to be like, I can't believe you
you
said that.
said that. Well, you're always.
We'll just say, hi, Mom. Now tell the story.
So one of the funny things, it has to do with my husband. The first time he came over to my parents' house, we were watching a movie, and my mom knocked on my bedroom door, and she said, I need you to come out here. And I was like, okay. And she's like, Maddie got out because she's a runner.
Okay.
And she took the water hose and stuck it in Joe's car.
Oh.
And left it on and filled his car up with water. And my mom tells me this, and I start laughing, and I'm just like, you got to be kidding me. I'm
Are
like,
you kidding? How much did it get filled up?
pretty much almost all the way. It was out there for a while. She had dragged the the hose box, like 20 feet down the driveway. She was even younger then, and that thing's heavy.
Yeah.
And she stretched the hose all the way to the street where his car was. And I told my mom, I'm like, you make it so hard for me to meet people.
Especially if you fill their car with water.
Yeah.
Every time you meet them.
And so when I went back in my room, he's like, do I need to leave or
I
something?
don't
And
think you can right now.
and I just went, well, you might want to, and that's okay. But my sister filled your car up with the hot water hose, and it's filled with water.
How did he react?
If you want to go, I totally get it.
But how would he go? His water is full.
You'd have to
This is
drain
true.
it,
I get him a towel. I mean,
throw a
I don't-
towel down, you know?
Like we're gonna.
He took a lot of towels.
Yeah.
And then, since it was October when it used to get cold,
Oh, yeah.
it froze.
Oh.
The water
The
in
water
his
froze?
car?
Yeah.
To a solid block of ice?
Well, no, like he got most of the water out, but like the
Then
carpet and the
It
interior
was crusted with ice.
froze.
Oh.
And that night, he was like, I'm really impressed she dragged that giant hose box that far.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay. And he said, I like you more than the car.
Yeah.
Oh, that's
That's sweet.
sweet.
And yeah, that was really nice. And I was like, well, she's going to do this stuff again. It's just going to be different next time.
That was his first time over at the house?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was him meeting my
So is your
family.
sister a little territorial? Like maybe she didn't like him?
No.
She just thought it'd be fun.
Yeah, she said she was watering the plants. When
Maybe he shouldn't keep the plants in his car.
I know, like she was covered in mulch, and my mom was like, "What is all over you?" And she's like, "Water plants." And my mom was like, And then she went outside. And she was like, "Oh God."
Oh wow.
So I mean, he immediately put up with a lot,
Yeah.
He was like, "This is the story I'm going to live with."
and I had told him that me and her package, like if you get me, you get her, and she thinks she does so much stuff that it's hard to even think of everything because she's a runner, and like she ran off in St. Kitts and escaped and was running around the resort. And for 45 minutes, we had to chase her and find her and track her down.
So for her, it's hide and seek.
Well, when I found her, I was like, Maddie, what are you doing? And she said, pizza. And I was like,
She wanted pizza?
yeah. And I said, you're never going to have pizza again for the rest of your life. Oh, my God. You've been gone for 45 minutes.
You scared us, yeah.
Yeah,
That's
it's
sweet.
she's just walking around like a regular, like, tourist. No big deal.
Oh, to her, it was just a regular day. I'm out looking for pizza.
She knew there was a pizza place in the resort.
I see.
Oh.
And we got there at 10:30 the night before.
Mm-hmm.
So I woke up at 7 o'clock in the morning to call the police. Maddie's gone. And I was like, oh, God, here we go.
So, well,
I do like pizza. I understand her struggle.
She loves food. So, I mean, that's
get
the
that
comical
too.
part of my life. I do have comedy in my life.
Well,
and
it's important to have comedy.
she's a big one. She's always doing stuff.
Yeah, that's fun.
Oh, yeah. She painted my mom's car with house paint.
What color?
The car was white and the paint was white.
Oh, okay. So
We
it
don't-
matched.
just more white.
Yeah, we don't know how she got it open.
Just an extra layer.
Yeah, it's house
I needed
paint,
an extra coat of paint.
which comes off like just with water.
Oh, really?
We found
Oh,
out. Yeah. We found out
Good to know.
tricks.
Good to know for when
Good to
Angela
know.
paints my car.
I do it all the time. It's kind of a thing.
It's house paint too. House paint.
Yeah. Don't use spray paint. That'll never come off.
Oh, man. No, I don't. So don't worry about that, honey.
Anyway, so thank you for sharing all
Thank
these
you for
stories. You have an
Oh, you're welcome.
amazing story, and we're glad you're doing better.
Oh yes,
And you
much better.
Sounds like you don't have a toxic relationship or a stalker right now. So.
No,
good.
I have a very
You have
happy
Sicilian.
relation. Yes, I have a Sicilian.
Yeah.
He's the quiet kind. He's very quiet.
That's good. Well, you wanted to mention your book to our listeners. You
Yes.
actually have a copy in
have a
hand now.
copy.
But we stopped the live stream.
We stopped
so you
the
won't see
live
it.
stream, so
But, yeah.
but it's helping couples overcome infidelity, a therapist manual. I have a copy in my book. We'll do an episode where I read out of it at some point.
Yeah.
But basically, if you want to buy it, it's $34.95. You can get it on Amazon, and I cover the basic milestones couples need to go through in order to work through an infidelity.
Right.
I've been working with couples for years now. This is my 6th year in business. Actually going on my 7th, starting my 7th year in business.
Yeah.
And pretty much it's all couples therapy. And the whole time with couples therapy, pretty much 50% of your population is working people through infidelity.
Right.
And so this is from many years of helping couples really rebuild their lives and find ways to be happy again after an infidelity.
Right.
So I hope you guys can check out the book.
And if they can't afford to go to therapy and they've had an infidelity, they can buy a book for
Yeah.
$35 and try
The
to work
book is
through
a
it
good
there.
start to see if you even feel
Self-help,
connected. Yeah.
Exactly.
And then, so we have our thing here if
Go
you
ahead.
want to try it. Well, you're the start to it, so.
So this has been the About Sex podcast, and we've been talking with Meredith Dino.
Yep.
And be sure to add us on Facebook, review us on iTunes, and send us your questions to aboutsexpodcast@gmail.com, and we may just answer it on the air. I'm Joshua Skirtu.
And I'm Angela Skirtu. Stay kinky, St. Louis.
You're silly.